Users conference number 417. Let's hope your expectation doesn't fail. Our thanks go out to Voxale Labs, creators of Tropo.com, Sangoma.com, makers of world-class hardware and software for VoIP. VUC hosted PBXs at onsip.com. And your first call for VoIP equipment purchases should be to Michael White over at e4strategies.com. Audio is coming to you via the auspices of zipdx.com, full-featured high-definition conference bridge. And thanks to voxbone.com, you can call in from 40-plus world cities at local rates. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Let's see if Thomas can hear me and if we can hear him.
Sure, I can still hear you.
And you sound good, so I think we're okay. Thomas, my first question to most guests, I've known you for years, and yet I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
Well, we call it Peterseid in German, but never mind, just call me Thomas.
Okay. And Thomas is correct, it's not Thomas.
No, Thomas is correct.
Which it would be in French. We're going to be talking about SipXecs, which everybody says SipXecs.
Yeah, but I think it's more well known as SipXecs.
SipXecs,
So
okay.
I guess we can just call it SipXecs, yeah.
Give us a little background on, by the way, the thing I posted, I'm looking for it. It's wiki.sipfoundry.org. And will that resolve to the SipX actual page, or do they have to add the display SipX part of the URL? Anyway, look up SIP, SIPXECS, folks, on Google, and you will find the correct page. Thomas, can you give us a little background on it?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I made a small presentation to give you a little bit of background and to let you know a little bit about the system. Yeah, I hope you can see my screen. It should be some in the Google Plus in the Hangout. Does it work?
I think it does. It should. If somebody can confirm that for us. Thanks,
yeah,
Lazy.
I've seen it.
And it should be full screen.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I just made a small presentation. So the first part will be a small introduction about the system, and the second part will be a little bit of hands-on, because I made some demo installation, and I'll just try to show you a little bit how it looks like in the practical work. Yeah. So about the SipXecs. Well, maybe some words about me. Well, we already mentioned my name. I'm Thomas. I'm working at the University of Education in Upper Austria in Europe. I'm in the ICT management e-learning team. I'm teaching ICT, and I'm as well in some EU projects. And first of all, I have to somehow, say that I'm not an engineer. So I'm coming more from the pedagogical background. So please forgive me if I can't answer all your deep technical questions, but I will try to do my best. Actually, I tried to bring somebody proper on this call, but I really tried and begged many people to come in and talk a little bit about the system, but somehow nobody was able to join the conference call. Yeah, so let's go to the real interesting thing. What's SipX and why do we use SipX in our university? A couple of years ago, while we were running an old Nortel system, and the service contract was running out, and yeah, we had to do some steps forward in the future, and yeah, I was somehow responsible for that. And why do we have chosen SipX? Well, first of all, it's an open source software solution. And the second thing is it's a really very stable and redundant system, especially made for large environments, which was somehow important. Sorry?
Go ahead, everything's fine.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I looked for a couple of solutions. I looked at different asterisk solutions, and well, they are fine and they're nice, of course, but something very typical for the SipX is that it's really made for large environments, and also the fact that it's somehow redundant is made from the beginning, and you can see it in the structure. I will show it to you a little bit later. Yeah, then some other aspect which was also important for me was that it's wide print capable, so 722 is not a problem. Provisioning for Polycom phones, well, I was thinking between, had to decide between Gnomes and Polycom phones. Went on the Polycom side. And yeah, so there's provisioning as well for Polycom phones. There is more or less nice web interface for the administrator as well for the user. It's SIP standard. The nice feature which is well important for us, or was important for us, there's some kind of presence system. In that case, it's XMPP. You have a lot of additional functions like auto attendance, IVR, the voicemail, and so on. There's also a conference bridge included, and for me it was also very important that there is some commercial support available. So if something goes wrong, I have a phone number which I can call, and people will have a look on it. Yeah, so what's SipX or SipX ECS? I just went to the Wikipedia and just copied and pasted here the article from the beginning of the article from Wikipedia. So SipX is, well, ECS stands for Enterprise Communication Server, and SipX is, well, it's mostly called SipX. It's an open source voice over IP telephony server. Yeah, a little bit of historical background. Development started in 2000. At that time, Pinktel Corporation contributed most to the non-organization, which is called SIP Foundry. This organization is still existing and keeping the code, and it's also, I think, ran to this website. And yeah, 2008, Pinktel was taken by Nortel, and as we all know, 2009 Nortel was taken by Avaya, and yeah, some former members of Pinktel and Nortel created a new commercial company which is called eSUS, and they are right now as well offering commercial service for this software. But nevertheless, SipX is still open source and under the AGPL license available. Yeah, who is using SipX? One of the well-known largest installation is at Amazon, so Amazon is using SipX for the internal system. Well, there's a lot of big companies like American Airlines, British Airways, Texas Instruments, Swisscom, and our colleagues at Counterpath also using SipX. Of course, the list is much longer. I just wrote a couple of companies there which are somehow famous. I wrote the link as well, so you can all the installations which are publicly used. Some technical specifications. SipX is really speaking on the SIP, so there is no other protocol except XMPP, but SipX is really a SIP-based PBX. And what I found out is that SipX is also some reference for SIP. So it's used by the SIP forum as a reference. A very nice idea how to make a system SIP system redundant is doing it by DNS. And in that case, it's DNS SRV. And I think this solution is very nice and very, very clear, I would say. And we are running this system in production since 2.5 years, and we never ever had problems with that. And we are running around 300 extensions, so that's really rock stable. One thing is as well, the media goes directly from endpoint to endpoint, so the server is not somehow included in the media path. So, for instance, if the server goes down for whatever reason, all active calls are still going on, and they will be not somehow disturbed by the server. Then, yeah, the database is a PostgreSQL database which gets replicated between all SipX servers. They're also using more and more FreeSwitch. So the voicemail conferencing IVRs are right now made by FreeSwitch as a component. There's provisioning for Polycom, Astra, Avaya, Cisco, Grandstream, Linksys, Snom, and a lot of phones are supported. I can show you the list a little bit later when I will show you the web interface. They're using OpenFire as a XMPP server. So XMPP and presence is included as well in the system. Yeah, it runs mainly on CentOS, Red Hat, and it's available mainly the ISO file, so you can go to the website, download it, install it directly from the ISO. But you also, if you have already a running system, you can install some RPMs. So, yeah, here you can find some additional links. So the SIP Foundry was already mentioned, and I think Randy mentioned it as well. The ISUSE, which is right now the company who is also offering commercial service. There is a wiki where you can find a lot of background information. There is also a book available for SipX. And of course, there are different mailing lists for developers and users. We use in our university the version 4.2, and the version 4.6 came out at the beginning of December, and I will show you today the new version, the 4.6 version. Actually, we are running in our university the 4.2 version, the old one. We haven't made an update till right now. Any questions or comments? Just.
I do have a very simple. Oops, I got no. Just a second.
Point to ask them or to post them right now, because I'm looking a little bit at the IRC, but I can't see.
I do have a quick question, and for some reason the audio is messed up as usual. Excuse me, and it's a really simple question, which is, I find it a little bit confusing, the SIP Foundry and SipX. SipX is the name of the project, and SIP Foundry are the people, or because branding-wise, and I know that open source maybe doesn't care about this, but what's the relationship there, to make a long story short? Who is SIP Foundry exactly?
I would say the SipX is the product, and SIP Foundry is the organization behind. So that's a non-profit organization behind, which is somehow keeping the code base for the product, and the product is the SipX.
Okay, so they don't feel that SipX deserves its own URL or its own domain name, or what? Maybe the domain name's already taken, or whatever.
Might be. I just noticed the SIP Foundry exists since a long, long time, since I think 1999, and they got the code from Pinktel 2004.
Mm-hmm. And I guess people who are in this area of, I mean, people who are running it and interested in it probably know, and it's obvious to them. But for anyone who is new to it, that part's a little bit confusing. Anyway, and Lazy Boy says he can try to unmute. What? Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it. *6 to unmute, and you can say your piece.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yep, fine.
All right, great. So you're right. The SIP Foundry originally started with more projects. Reciprocate, I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's a SIP stack. They were in the beginning involved with SIP Foundry. So SIP Foundry had more than just SipX, but SipX was always the biggest project. Eventually, Reciprocate moved out and kind of left SIP Foundry's sole project as SipX, which is fine. So it can be a little confusing, but that's kind of the story around it.
Okay, great. Thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we hope to hear from you later on with contributions as well. Don't hesitate. Thomas.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Thomas, pray thee continue. Oh, and
Yeah,
James,
right.
just a second. James also had a question, but I think it was answered in IRC about who's running SipX. Is that right, James? You got the answer? He's not. Okay. Go ahead, Thomas.
He just mentioned that he has one of those pink telephones.
Yeah, that is funny. In IRC.
Yeah, the next thing I just would like to show you a little bit the website, which is somehow, well, I would like to show you the administrator website.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just log in here.
Gee, we can't see the password.
Well, it's not the production system, so it's not really that tempting, I guess. What I really like in the system that it's really, really easy to use. So you don't need to hack in some configuration files or so on. The most of the things, or almost all things, you really can do via the web interface, which is somehow nice. Well, and you can adapt the web interface as well. So if you have your own company, you can put their own logos and so on. I just have the default one, which I downloaded yesterday. I might start from the right side, which is maybe a little bit confusing or unusual. Because on this website you can really find already a lot of nice tools. And for instance, here I can see already the registration, so I can see which phones are or which extensions are registered right now on the system. I can see the call recordings and so on. Maybe one thing which is nice I would like to mention here, you can set up some alarms. So if some process goes down for whatever reason, you can create some alarm and you can get an email, which is somehow handy. Here in the system, well, what kind of services I've installed. Actually, no. Well, we run the phones in the VLAN, so it's completely separated from our normal infrastructure. And in our case, our production system runs as well as a DHCP server. So I just need to plug in a new Polycom phone in the right VLAN, and the phone starts automatically and gets from the DHCP server IP address the newest firmware. And when the Polycom phones finish starting, I can see on the display of the Polycom phone a small ID.
Warning, your identity is in use by one other participant.
At the phones, when I go here to devices and phones, well, right now there are no phones because I don't have any phones registered right now. But normally, if I just plug in here a Polycom phone and the DHCP is activated, then I can see here in the description the ID of the phone. And if I have that, I just can select the phone and assign a number to this phone and a user, which is somehow nice. Yeah, DNS, as I said, DNS is heavily used in the SipXecs system, so it's really important that the DNS is working well. Actually, we never had problems with that, luckily. Yeah, instant messaging, I've already mentioned. XMPP, which is also somehow nice. So if somebody is on the phone, you can see that as well in your XMPP client. What else is important here? Go forward. Well, conferencing, that's maybe a point which might be interesting because we are right now on a conference bridge. If I can zoom in, well, actually I can make it bigger. Just a second.
Actually, for some reason, I can see everything perfectly. I can read the small print and everything, but I know that sometimes, sometimes it's not visible.
So yeah, conference bridge. So you can assign a conference to a user, and as you can see here, for instance, it's assigned to my extension. The conference has the extension number 7000. And I even have here a small web interface for the conference, so I can mute people, I can unmute people, I can add people by just writing here the phone number, and then I click on invite participant, and the person will be invited to the conference. Yeah, then you have the normal stuff like music on hold. You can upload here. You have phone books, of course, auto attendance, intercom, paging groups. Then that might be a little bit more interesting. What kind of phones are supported? You have here the Astra phones, the audio codec phones, Avaya phones. Bria is as well supported. Cisco phones, Grandstream phones, LG, Nortel, Linksys phones, Polycom's phones, Snom phones. So you can find really a lot of phones here which are supported. And I will just add, for instance, a new, let's take a Polycom phone. And
Question.
yep, go ahead.
You support any cordless wireless phones?
I don't think there are cordless phones. Well, there are no gigasets here, so I couldn't find any wireless one, honestly. There is no there are no wireless one. Oh, here, Hitachi wireless. Here are some. Actually, this list is changing all the time. So I also heard a rumor that they will support the E-Link phones, but I can't find the E-Link here in this version. But once they talked about it, they want to have the provisioning as well for the E-Link phones.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Lazy Boy. Yeah, I think Hitachi was the only wireless. There was talk of the Polycom one, but I don't think that ever got in. But the phones here are, yeah, just automatic provisioning. Certainly, all those other phones, a lot of those other phones would work with the system, but you're just on the hook for configuring it yourself.
And I would say that the provisioning from the phones is really nice, because I'm right now here in the menu where you can change all the configuration. And that's really amazing what you can set up here via this provisioning server. That's really, you can even add lines which are not on the SipXecs server. So if I can say here, okay, I will add some line, let's say a SipGate line or OnZip or whatever, I can do it here as well. So I can give the phone the credentials as well for lines which are not here on the system. Which is, well, I use it a lot actually as well for my system at home and so on.
The other, this is Doug, this is Lazy Boy again. The other thing I like about the phone thing is that the groups are you can put phones in certain groups, like you could say the third floor and the second floor, so you can divide the groups into different categories. And then you could put the same phone in multiple groups, so you can say these are the ones running this firmware, and these are the phones using this firmware. So you can essentially control a phone that's in the third floor in running this firmware, and you can control a lot of different settings and control just that one subset of phones. So there's a lot of flexibility in the phone groups configuration themselves, and the same goes for users. So when you have users of certain groups or certain areas, you do the same thing.
Yep, that's a great function. We use it as well. That really works perfectly.
Okay, since we're paused here, anybody else have any questions?
As already mentioned, you also can, of course, make user groups. I made here, for instance, a VUC test user group, and also, well, I made it here that they have some XMPP IM account here, so which is normally disabled. And when you create a new user, you can add the user here already to the right user group. The SIP password is automatically created, and here I can select the user group, and it's done.
What was the branch?
Yeah, so that was a very, very short overview. Right now I haven't checked the IRC, so if I missed some question on IRC, please forgive me. Are there any? Well, am I still online?
Yeah, you're here. Am I here?
Branch field. This is Doug.
Yeah, what was the branch field? That just in passing. Curious.
Yeah, it's a good question. I can answer that if you want.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So sometimes your users, you want them to go out a certain gateway when they're calling. So it's not based on what they're doing, but because that gateway is physically closer to that user where they're generally located, you can attach that user to a branch. And so when you're configuring your gateways, users would follow gateways associated with that branch. I think the idea, the reason why it's probably not named a little better is I think it was going to be, used maybe more elaborately, but that's kind of how it works. So it's tying a user to a physical location. In most cases, users aren't supposed to be tied, but occasionally you want to say that user generally goes out through this gateway. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. And Andy's asking about is this a single server installation? How scalable is it?
Right now it's a single server installation, but of course you can put there more than one servers. There was once the limitation of 3 servers. I don't know if it's still there, this limitation, or if it's with the 4.6 that you can put already more.
No, you can add more servers now, and so you can add really just, I don't know what the theoretical limit is, but you can add quite a few. And so what you do is so you can add, let's say you add 5 servers. You can designate 3 of the servers to run the proxy so that incoming calls hit those 3 servers, and then you can offload other services to the other 2 servers. So it's not always about the number of servers, it's the number of redundant systems. You kind of configure what you want, how you want to spread the servers around. So so yeah, there's no real limit. I mean, ultimately, you'd add more servers and it would have negative effects, but.
Big stream of continuing questions in IRC. James asking about how the free switch component within SipXecs is configured. Andy, who had the last question, so maybe we should continue with that, which is how does it load balance? You guys, I guess, can see these, so you can put them in any order you want. And I see a load balance. There's a part of a load balance answer from Thomas right now. Who wants to expound on that one? Douglas?
Yeah, sure, I can. So the Aaron mentioned the DNS SRV, and so internally the system uses DNS SRV to send traffic from the proxy to, say, FreeSwitch or other components. But there's another component of DNS that you configure within your network. And so you can configure your DNS within your system, your SRV records to point to the proxy. So if you have 3 proxies, you would add 3 DNS SRV records for those. And in SRV, you can balance. That balance is the wrong word. You can spread the load however you want. So 10%, 50% goes here, 50% goes here. And if one of those goes down, use this other server. So it's a hot standby. So if you look up the spec on an SRV, that's how you spread the load. But it's not intelligent load balancing in the sense that if one of the servers is working hard, it gets less traffic. It's not that intelligent. It just kind of it follows the DNS SRV to distribute the traffic.
Okay, I I hesitate to jump in, but we're waiting for the continuation from either Thomas or other question. What was James? Was James? Yeah. How about the free switch component?
Well, so it uses the free switch that you install via RPM. So we have a vanilla free switch. It's a specific version, I think 1.0.7. But you install free switch through the RPM, and the system installs that automatically. But it creates a set of XML files, and then tells free switch to reload. Uses the XML RPC API to tell it to reload. I recognize there's a fancier way in free switch to load that through the XML curl, but honestly, I find that if you know that you've placed the XML files in the right spot, you tell free switch to reload those. It's in some ways better than having free switch go out and grab XML. So I don't know if that answered the question, but it essentially generates the XML for free switch automatically.
It does. So thank you, Douglas.
Sure.
Okay, Thomas?
Yeah. Are there some other questions?
Any questions from anybody? That sounds like a no.
I can use this time to talk about a few things.
Yeah, please go ahead. I'm happy you're here.
Oh, great. Glad you're doing this.
We all are. Go ahead, Douglas.
If you go to Thomas, if you go to System and Servers, oh, you're there already. If you look at click on any other tab, like say Telephony Services. This is kind of new in 4.6, but that list of features that you can turn on, and as you turn on, servers get configured. If you added more servers, you would see another column where you could turn on services on different servers. So each server you add, you could say, I want to move a proxy here, and I want voicemail to be on this server. So you can move the services around. Excuse me. All these services, this list of services, is built dynamically plugins within the system. So if you want to, it's kind of 4.6 really now is I would consider it more of a platform than it ever was before, so that you can add, OEMs can add their own services to this list and just install them into RPMs, and those services will start up, and there's an API so that you can essentially bolt on whatever you don't see here, Salesforce integration, or whether they be SIP services, IM components, IM bots, whatever you want. So there's a lot to 4.6 to make it more of a platform.
Yeah, this is James. I'm a bit interested in that SIP capture server. What does that module do?
That's Homer. Have you ever heard of Homer?
Oh, I know Homer very well.
Okay, well that's what it is. Homer 3.3 version 3. So you enable that, and our proxies send all the SIP traffic to a Homer capture server, and it digests it and sticks it in a MySQL database, and then we provide a link to the Homer interface, and we configure the authentication to Homer to authenticate against the admins in your SipXecs system, so that you just click on a link and you log in, and then you can analyze the traffic within the system. going through the proxy. So you don't. So the nice thing is, if the Homer is a very great system, it takes a little bit to set up. But the nice thing here, and I haven't seen this before, is that that's literally just click enable, and now Homer is now enabled. So you don't have to do anything, no setup whatsoever. And I know the guys from Homer, and I've kind of worked together to make sure the integration was pretty efficient.
Yeah, looking at that site, it looks like the guys from Homer are going to Kama Elio World as well, April the 16th and 17th.
Oh, that's cool.
So we'll see them there.
Yeah, excellent.
Right.
Excellent. Are you going, Douglas? No, you're probably not in there.
I'm not. That's in you said Germany?
Berlin.
Berlin, yes. Unfortunately,
well,
not.
as Kama Elio is used by lots of people to do things like load balancing and things like that, probably not.
Well, we there's a lot of history as Thomas went over on SipXecs, and a lot of there's a SIP stack that in part of it that the proxy is built on and the registrar and a lot of the components are built on. This SIP stack never really caught on, never gained traction as a generic SIP stack, and so we are possibly looking for swapping out the proxy and some of the SIP components with other open source projects, much like we did with OpenFire, so that we can not have to maintain that SIP stack. So we're very interested in Chameleon or any SIP proxy and see how that kind of works with us. We don't pretend to think that our value is in our proxy.
Well, we've got Daniel is here on the conference, so you
really?
want to say hello. And
hi, Daniel. I met you at ClueCon a couple times.
He may not be.
Daniel is looking for his *6 button.
And I'm looking. Yeah, we're looking to see if we can get him in here. Now I'm looking for the hidden participants thing. Here we go. Where did you? How do you see that he's there? I don't see him.
Well, perhaps he's not. He's certainly on IRC, isn't he?
He's probably but I don't see anything that would resemble him on. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, perhaps I'm giving you some duff info again.
Again, indeed.
Talking about Camelio. Well, the SPC which is included in SipXecs is somehow, well, I think Camellia would do a great job there as well, instead of the one which is used right now.
Yeah, because you can't underestimate the value of the SPC. I mean, it's really the front gate for interoperability with some, a lot of different systems, and if you don't make that highly flexible, you're kind of toast. And I think Chameleo's programmable, SIP massaging, I think it's pretty key, and we just don't have that in our current SPC.
Okay, next. Go ahead.
Because I wouldn't use SipXecs directly on the internet without SPC. So to expose it directly to the internet without any firewall or SPC between, I think it's a little bit risky.
Absolutely. And what's new in 4.6 is that it does have a firewall, but essentially it allows all traffic on 5060 straight through. So it doesn't attempt to do any rate limiting on that quite yet. Although we are integrating fail to ban at the moment, but you're right. Yeah, an SBC is always a good idea. Dedicated SBC.
Yeah, and I think Camellia would fit there probably very well.
Mm.
Did we get all the questions, James? I think on your end, I think we did. And Bob's got one. Well, yeah, I think that sort of was addressed, but the relationship between the company and SipXecs.
Well, as I work for Zeus, we were probably we're definitely the main contributors to the project. So in that regard, that's really the relationship. We don't have to be the main contributors, but currently we are. We're definitely hoping to bring more people in, but SipXecs, as we covered, is only is the project's a SIP Foundry, and SIP Foundry is a nonprofit organization, so they are separate as much as they can be from a structural point of view. But a lot of the board that's made up of SIP Foundry are SipXecs, are Zeus employees.
So it's a little different than Digium, which is an example that comes to mind as far as open source not merged, but as part of a commercial effort. This is not really similar to that. It's quite different, I guess.
I'm not too familiar with it, but so I'm not sure.
Okay, well, at any rate.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Anyway, it was just, I think if the people who know Digium is a company and they have versions. I don't even know if they still do this, but I think they do. They still have versions that have commercial versions of Asterisk, but they also do a lot of work on Asterisk. I wish somebody who, like Ule was here, who would know the percentage of code that's actually committed. I don't know anything about that. Maybe if anyone does, you might mention it, but I'm just saying that in passing, actually. Daniel just said, James, that he doesn't have the bandwidth, by the way, so let's not pass it on.
Yeah, same.
Okay. All right, Thomas, where are we? This is your presentation. We're happy to have Douglas to help, but let's get back to what you had to say. You got the structure?
No, I'm really happy that he is here, so it's because he is the right person to ask.
Yeah, no, that's great, but you had some things in mind, so let's keep things moving along.
As you mentioned before, the relationship between ISUSE and SipXecs. Actually, I don't know exactly the difference between the VUC version, which is sold by ISUSE, and the SipXecs version that you can download. As far as I know, there's only the difference that the voicemail is redundant on the ISUSE version. I don't know if there's any other difference.
I think no, that's about it. That's about it. Yeah, I think you nailed it. There's definitely plans to add more. So to touch on it on the previous conversation about Digium and open source licensing. It's very interesting is that SipXecs started as a distributed architecture because it's kind of what the SIP RFC kind of guides you through. And so each of these processes run in their own address space and they do their own thing. You configure them within this web interface, but ultimately there are services running standalone and they do whatever they need to. So maybe fundamentally different than maybe say Asterisk is that you can tack on any type of proprietary components and run them. And although the configuration would probably have to comply with the AGPL license, your standalone application does not. It runs in its own address space. So OpenUC can expand on and add more services as anybody can. And as a whole, you don't really, see the difference. You gain the benefit of having a distributed architecture, and I think creates a nice ecosystem for partners and OEMs that want to expand on this. And I think the new platform capabilities of 4.6 is a pretty powerful combination. I really have high hopes for this.
James asked a question about requirements, minimal hardware requirements. I just started to type him in IRC.
Yeah, it's just quicker to talk, I think, Thomas.
Yeah.
Well, when you start the system now in 4.6, the only service that's running out of the box is the administration interface that you see in the Hangout. You actually have to enable the first service, like the proxy, or a voicemail server. So it all depends on what services you plan to run. Having said that, the minimum requirement just to run the admin interface, and the admin interface is admittedly a bit heavy. No surprise, it's based on Java when I say heavy. That you're probably going to look at a comfortable system somewhere between 2 and 4 gigs. I do think that when you start to use the system, see the benefits, you are probably talking about users in the double digits, or even hundreds, or even thousands. So at that point, the cost of the resources kind of
So I can probably get away with a single core processor with 4 gigs of RAM. I can find one of those in a rack somewhere, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't have to go as far as Iraq.
Boom, boom.
I really do. Sorry.
The one component that would possibly play into the single core is the free switch. And so if you look at the demands of the requirements of free switch as far as number of cores, and depending on what you're going to do with the media part, which is the conferencing and the voicemail, you may need to see how that would do on a single core, but I think it'd be fine.
Great. I might give that a go if I can find a quiet moment. This is not quiet, isn't it?
See, James, you're
James is downloading. So.
Yeah, that's the Tor
James
thing.
just expended his budget for packets.
Yeah, I think he's out of packets.
Well, the problem is I've got about 4 devices all going at the same time, keeping a reserve and running out of options, so I'm running out of bandwidth instead.
So James mentioned the Raspberry Pi, and of course the requirements of the main server would far blow that away. But when you're adding a server, the requirements of that other server, which does not run the main interface, that system needs to be able to run in order for it to participate in the configuration of the system. That server just needs to run one component, and that's CF Engine. So underneath the scenes of this administration interface is CF Engine. If you don't know what that is, it essentially allows for kind of configuration of systems across a cluster. Now we pick CF Engine specifically above the other ones because of its very low requirements. So I absolutely think that you could have Raspberry Pis, something like a Raspberry Pi, participate in the overall cluster. And you get CF Engine in to compile on there, which compiles fine with GCC. I think its only requirement is the PECRE compatibility library. If you can get that to compile on there, then you can register with the system, and you can get that to run whatever you want to run on your Raspberry Pi as far as components. And then in your plugin you can say, you configure DNS automatically as such to route traffic to this system. So I just got a couple of Raspberry Pis for Christmas, so I've been playing with them. So who knows?
Yeah, me too. Funny that.
Probably a large number of those on the call, for those of us on the call. I don't have one yet, but someday probably. Okay, so we're back to super admin with the pin that we can't see, fortunately. Even though this is a non-production system.
Maybe one word about the phones.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you noticed that when I go to the Polycoms, the new VVX versions like the 600 and the 500 are not supported right now because the new firmware is not supported till right now. I hope 4.0 will be soon supported, and I heard or I've read an email that it will be some update for the system, but right now the new firmware for the Polycom phones is not supported till right now.
Why would that be, by the way? Because how different, I mean, the config files are probably not incredibly different, so
They are.
tell us about
as far as I know, they are completely different, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They are? What's different?
The config is completely different.
Right. That's right.
Okay. Because I mean, I've got the phones, and well, it's true that one of mine has an error message on it saying that the config file is using pre 3.3 lines in it or something. But the point is that a lot of Polycom's XML is the same, so that's what I didn't get.
Yeah, so on that note, we actually are in final testing of the Polycom 4.0 software right now, and I kind of manage the builds of SipXecs, so I have a URL, a repository, a Yum repository with the 4.0 support in it, and we would absolutely love to have people who could help us test for the 4.0 firmware for the Polycom. So that is absolutely imminent. We're just in the final stages of testing that support, so which is going to be really nice.
Yeah, because the whole provisioning is a really nice tool here, and if the 4.0 is supported, that would be really very nice as well.
Yeah. I get a lot of people comment on the configuration, all the settings in the Polycom that are exposed. You really, I mean, 90% of the config files, config settings are exposed in the Polycom, and we do that not because we're masochists, but because you can't be in a situation where you say, "Oh, I can't configure that." You know, if the volume headset on your Polycom phone has to be at 6, you gotta have access to that setting. Because if you don't, what are you gonna do if the system takes care of the config file for you? So we really sometimes overwhelmingly give you access to all the settings, but there's really no other way. The best we can do is to allow you to, hopefully that you manage your groups properly, so that you're not going to 100 phones and going, okay, I'm going to set the volume to 6 here and 7 here. If you use the phone groups properly, and then you can make sure that you configure your phones the best way, and you really need to have access to all those settings. And if there is a setting for some reason that's not there, there's a config file, an XML config file, that you can add the setting, and it'll show up in the web interface, participate in all the group management, and then it will wind up in the config file. So we try to make it as flexible as possible and provide all those settings to you. Even sometimes, as you can see in the screen, we don't always relabel the settings. Sometimes they're really low-level names, but the point is that you really need access to those, because you can't be in a situation where you can't configure that. If the TCP keep alive timeout needs to be configured, you got to be able to access that.
Ah, Nat. Favorite topic.
Mm-hmm.
Keep alive.
That's what I'm trying to do. Keep alive.
So some of the features that we're hearing more and more traction on is the BLA and the BLF. So the BLF being that you're monitoring other phones, and when they go off hook or they're on a call, your sidecar on your Polycom, shows you the state of that call. So if you're the main operator, you can see the state of people. That's the BLF. So we have a dedicated server just to manage the traffic, to understand the subscriptions back and forth. And the other one's the VLA, which is simply that two phones share the same line, but they share them in a way that you can when one phone picks up the line, the other one shows that the other phone has that call. If you've ever seen VLA, it's kind of what the old PSTNs do automatically, which is you pick up any phone and you're on the call.
This was a hugely discussed feature for years and years before it appeared in things like Asterisk. Yeah.
Yeah. Ironically, PSTN, we just take it for granted, but for SIP, some things get harder in SIP, and that's one of the things that's kind of hard, is to be able to do that. But
yeah,
with BLA, you get most of that, but in some extra features.
Yeah,
so
no, it's a great example of a paradigm that existed in the old days. I mean, no one misses rotary dials, right? I don't think so. But everyone who ever used a phone in a business environment where you had multi-line phones misses the idea that when you pick up a phone, the little thing lights up, and just the feedback was really James Bodie misses rotary dials. I miss live operators. So before we had dials, but point is that feedback was just so intuitive compared to the much more sophisticated things that you can do today. And parking a call compared to just pushing that button and seeing the thing blink, that was a huge thing for a lot of people, especially people who don't want to think about this stuff. We love to mess around with it, but a lot of people don't want to know about it.
Right.
Anyway,
I agree. Yeah.
We digress. It's my fault. Let's see. Anything besides commenting on Twinkies going on in IRC? Yeah, as Life says, no one who would have had to use a rotary dial all day long. Not that he's old enough to remember that, but no one would miss that.
I do. I had a rotary dial when I was a kid.
Yeah, when you were about 5, right?
Anyway. Maybe. I'm from a small town.
Okay. Because when I was a kid, you picked. There you go. When I was a kid, you picked up the phone and asked for the number, but let's not go there.
I'm not that old.
Thomas, I'm hoping you'll rope this thing back to where we were.
Well, from my side, I'm fine. So I hope I was able to show you a little bit around, and thanks for the big help, Douglas, to join and jump in.
Sure, my pleasure.
Okay, so I guess we can kill the video hangout then, which has been on for about an hour, and continue on the audio call if we like, and just get even more geeky. Because I will stop the broadcast now and unghost everybody. So for those of you watching, if anybody has gotten this far on YouTube on the recording, by the way, check us out. It's VUC.me on the web, and you can download the audio recordings and so on if you want to listen to them on a train, which is what I do. Join us every Friday, 12 noon, VUC.me.